Morning students, I am your SSC teacher Mrs. Manju Sharma. Today we will start our second chapter of history from trade to territory. In the previous chapter we have read about how the Britishers preserved official records and we have come to know about their administration. In this chapter we will learn how trading company came here, why they came here, and how they become trade to territory. As we know, the beginning of the 18th century in India saw the passing away of the last powerful Mughal ruler Aurangzeb. After his death in 1707, India divided in the hands of many rulers and many regional kingdoms came about. While the Indian subcontinent was getting fragmented into smaller political states, the trading companies from European countries who had established trading relations with India since the 16th century started eyeing territorial gains on the resource of rich Indian soil. So, children, we will study how the British changed their position from a trading company to the rulers of the vast Indian territory. First of all, we will learn about different countries who arrived India in 18th century. Students, India was a vast country rich in mineral and agricultural resources. Voyagers and explorers from European countries traveled through India found to their surprise that the cost of various items here were so low that they could easily cover up the cost of transportation across high seas and still make large profits. For example, when Vasco da Gama of Portugal discovered the new sea route from Europe around the India, Africa to port of Calicut in India, he found that the price of different things is very low here. So, the various European countries which had interest in India were the French, the Dutch, the Portuguese, and the British. Travelers from Spain and Danish also traded with India but at a small scale. Now we will learn how the European setting footholds in India. First of all, we will learn about the Portuguese. The Portuguese realized the advantages of trade with India and were the first to set sight on establishing trading centers in India. They established their merchants and agents in Cochin, Goa, and Daman. After that, the Dutch came here. The Dutch establishing trading centers in India and Surat and Ahmedabad in Gujarat, Nagapatnam and Mausilipatnam on the eastern coast, and smaller centers like Chinsura, Bengal, Patna, Bihar, and Agra, UP. After that, French came here. Learning from the trading practices of the Portuguese, the Dutch, the British, and the French also formed a trading company in 1964 here, and this was assisted by the French government in terms of loans and grants, which helped make rapid progress. It means the rulers of France were also give them subsidiary or other loans to establish their trade in India. The first French factory was established in Surat in 1667 under the Director Generalship of Martin. After that, the British came here. The advent of the Industrial Revolution gave rise to the need for more and cheaper raw material on the one hand and the markets to sell the finished goods on the other. For this purpose began the exploration of markets and trading areas beyond Europe, and at the same time came in the need to protect these trading companies from competition. In 1600, the East India Company was awarded a charter from Queen Elizabeth I and then the ruler of England, granting it the exclusive right to trade with the East. Such European countries came here, but it was now applicable against other European companies. Now that there were many European buyers for the same products from India, the demand and supply equation thus caused higher prices for the goods, which was reducing their profit. Such rivalries also necessitated the construction of fortifications around their trading posts and settlements. Small armies were required to protect their economic interest, but all this again started taking away portion of their profit. So they started so many policies to acquire the part of India. First step was the conquest of Bengal. The East India Company set up their first factory on the banks of Hooghly in 1651. The company traders, in those times known as factors, operated from this base, which was essentially a warehouse and also had its office. This factory led to the settlement of merchants and traders in the vicinity, and that is how, by 1696, the company started to make a fort around the settlement. In a couple of years, the company obtained zamindari rights over 3 villages. The commencement of expansion by the East India Company raised the alarm among the local Nawabs, which led to the famous Battle of Plassey. When they started grown up their power here, the Nawab didn't tolerate it, and the Plassey of battle took place. The Battle of Plassey took place between the Nawab of Bengal, Sirajuddaulah, and East India Company, and there were many reasons behind this battle. First, the misuse of royal farman by the company. Second, the fortification of Calcutta. Third, disrespecting the Nawab. These three things infuriated the Nawab, who in turn instructed the company to stop meddling in the political affairs, stop fortification, and to pay taxes. Lord Clive entered into a conspiracy with Mir Jafar, the commander-in-chief, the Nawab, and promised to make him the Nawab after the battle. He also enlisted the support of Jagat Singh, bankers of Bengal. The battle took place in year 1757, and the Battle of Plassey led to the conquest of Bengal and paved way for British rule in India. It exposed the weakness of the army and the Indian Nawabs. But after soon, the Battle of Buxar was fought between the company. The company was only interested in expanding trade, was not keen to take over administration of territories, but this was getting difficult as the puppet Nawab was not as helpful as anticipated. Mir Jafar was ultimately replaced by the Mir Qasim, and the Mir Qasim forged an alliance with the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II and the Nawab of Awadh Shujauddaulah. Their combined forces fought with the British forces at Buxar on 22 October 1764. The British won the battle and the company gained the rule of Bengal. Mir Qasim was overthrown and Mir Jafar was reinstated. The consequences of this battle was the British ultimately realized that they would have to take an administrative powers from the Indian puppets Nawab so as to meet their requirements. So they took Diwani rights from the Nawab, and the Diwani rights solved a major problem which was being faced by the company. Though in the 18th century the company had expanded its trade and was purchasing large number of goods, and after the gaining of Diwani rights, this problem was solved completely. Now, after the Battle of Buxar, dual government came in existence. The concept of dual government was introduced in Bengal by Lord Clive in 1765. This entailed a division of powers of governance between the Nawab and the company. General administration, including law and order, was under the Nawab of Bengal, and the revenue and military was under the company. The system was abolished in 1772 by Lord Warren Hastings, and they introduced so many policies in India, and first of the policy is the subsidiary alliance system. Lord Wellesley 1798 to 1805 followed the policy of expansion of Bengal, British in India. He entered into alliance with various Indian rulers and was able to assert the British supremacy in India. The main features of subsidiary alliance was Indian states accepting the alliance had to recognize the company power as paramount. Indian state had to maintain the British army. A British resident would be stationed in the court of Indian states. Indian states could not enter into any agreement with any other Indian state or foreign power. As a part of the alliance, the company would protect the Indian state against any external exertion. Means this policy was totally in favor of Britishers and against in Indian states. For the Indian state, they lost their independence. They lost their independence to make any relation with any other kingdom. They lost their sovereignty. The policy was not without any economic burden, as the rulers had to pay for the maintenance of large British army. So the all economic burden was on the Indian states. So it and so this policy was totally against Indian states, and the Nizam of Hyderabad was the first ruler to accept the alliance, and slowly and gradually it was extended to other areas also. After that, but there were so many rulers who were not surrendered them before the Britishers, and in these rulers, the Tipu Sultan and Hyder Ali was famous. Mysore emerged as a powerful state under the able leadership of Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan. The increasing influence of Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan posed a challenge to the authority of British. Hyder Ali recognized the danger posed by the British to India. To meet challenge, he started to modernize the army with the help of French officers. And after the death of Hyder Ali, Tipu Sultan continued with the policy of his father and trained his army. Tipu Sultan also tried to restrict the spice trade of the British in Malabar coast. All this led to the Anglo-Maratha War, which were fought between 1767 to 1799. After the Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan, the Marathas were powerful kingdom of India. The Maratha became very weak after the Third Battle of Panipat in 1761. Unity among the Maratha chiefs was destroyed, and they were divided into many states under different chiefs, namely the Bhosle, the Gaikwad, and the Sindhya. There were so many Anglo-Maratha wars, and the first Anglo-Maratha war was fought in 1775, and the second Anglo-Maratha war was fought in 1803 to 1805, and the third Anglo-Maratha war 1817 to 1818. This war finally crushed the power of the Maratha, and the Peshwa was dethroned. After that, the Britishers annexed of Sindh. Sindh occupied a strategic position. It lay on the route from British India to Afghanistan through the Bolan Pass, and they were worried that Russia might invade from this side, so they had signed the treaty of friendship with the Amir of Sindh. According to this treaty, the Amirs had promised not to allow the French to settle in Sindh. However, the British violated the terms of 1832 treaty and carried their armed force through Sindh and their war against Afghanistan. They finally annexed Sindh in 1843. After Sindh, they annexed Punjab. Maharaja Ranjit Singh had consolidated number of missiles into a kingdom. He was very powerful ruler of Punjab, but after the death of his death, Punjab could not remain independent for very long. The British took advantage of the instability in Punjab, and finally the Sikhs were defeated and Punjab came under the company rule in 1849. Apart from war, subsidiary alliance, they also adopted the doctrine of lapse. Lord Dalhousie devised a policy known as the doctrine of lapse for annexing Indian states. He applied the policy to acquire hold over a number of states like Satara, Nagpur, Jhansi, Udaipur and Sambalpur. According to this policy, if a ruler of any dependent state died without leaving on hire, his state would lapse or go to the British. Now we will learn about the annexation of Awadh. Awadh was annexed by Lord Dalhousie on the pretext that the Nawab was not able to rule it properly, but this created unrest among the Indian soldiers. After annexation of Punjab, Awadh, Bengal, Sindh, Maratha, Mysore, the Britishers were started setting up a new administration system in India. India was ruled by a private English company for the purpose of trade in eastern countries. The aim of the company was to increase the profit and to strengthen its hold over India. For this purpose, the company's activity, British government passed the Regulating Act of 1773. Regulating Act of 1773, according to this rule, Governor of Bengal became the Governor General of India. To help the Governor General, a council of 4 members was set up and decisions were taken by majority vote. Supreme Court was set up at Calcutta. The directors of the company were required to place before the ministry all correspondence relating to civil, military and revenue matters relating to India. But the act was failed to regulate the company's power as the members of council frequently quarreled. Now they changed this act and they introduced Pitt's India Act. Pitt's India Act was passed to overcome the shortcoming of Regulating Act, and the main features of this act was: for political purpose, the company was placed under the British government. The governors of Bombay and Madras were fully subordinate of the Governor General of Bengal. The Governor General was given the power to overrule the advice of the council, and the company retained to monopoly over Indian trade. Apart from this, the British administration system was very strong. The three pillars of British administrative systems were the army. The army was very strong in British rule. They followed a policy of discrimination. Indians were denied high positions. Soldiers were given proper training to fight, and new muskets and matchlocks were also introduced. Lord Cornwallis organized a proper police force. Thanas, police stations were established, and darogas were made in charge of the thanas. The civil service: Lord Cornwallis created the Indian Civil Service for the proper administration of British territories. Till 1853, the appointments were made by the directors of company, but later they started written examination, which was conducted in England. For a long time, Indians were excluded from the service, but after they allowed the Indians were to give the examination, but they were given subordinate post. And the judiciary: justice was enforced through a system of civil and criminal courts. The courts were presided over by the English, but were assisted by the Maulvis and Hindu Pandits. Students, through this chapter, we have come to know that the British were very clever, and they did everything with very well planned, and they came here as a trade and became our ruler. So now in next chapter we will learn how they ruling the countryside, because they were very aware from natural resources and they want to get more and more profit from here. So students, bye, and we will meet in our next